Hello students. Okay, today I'm going to teach you about different investment decisions. And on this investment decision, we're going to look at capital budgeting. I'm going to show you what is capital budgeting and the different techniques we're going to use to come up with the best solution. So capital budgeting, it involves commitment of funds to long-term projects which will generate benefit in the future. This long-term project all can be classified into, classification 1 is called replacement project. Replacement project involves replacing an old and inefficient asset with a new more efficient asset. So in this case you are replacing the machine. That's what is called replacement project. You replace an old one with a new one. Okay. Classification 2 is called acquisition project, and acquisition involves purchasing of completely new assets that didn't exist. So in this case, maybe say a manufacturing plant, you buy a new machine which didn't exist before. So you acquire. So that is called acquisition project. You acquire a machine that you didn't have before. Okay. Okay, classification 3 is called expansion project, and the expansion project involves addition of new investment to already existing one. Okay, in this expansion project, you add a new machine which is already existing. So in this case, this is the opposite of acquisition project. Acquisition, we said you purchase new asset that didn't exist, and the expansion project, we purchase an asset that already existed. So you acquire another one that it was already there, that it existed before. So classification 4 is called divisible and indivisible projects. Divisible projects are those which start to generate revenue even before they are complete. And indivisible projects is the opposite of divisible, which says that they do not start generate revenue until the project is complete. I'll give an example of divisible project. Let's say, for instance, a manufacturing real estate. So in this case, maybe the real estate want to build a story building. So maybe let's say he wants to construct a 4-story building. So when he's done with the first floor and the second floor, he may want it to rent it for buyers. So in this case, the first and the second floor will start earning from those 2 floors even before the completion of the whole building. So that's called divisible project. Okay. Classification number 5 called mutually exclusive project. And the mutually exclusive project, these are projects that compete against each other. I'll give you an example of a mutually exclusive project. Let's say, for instance, a manufacturer who has 2 options. Option 1, he wants to expand his existing plant, and option 2, wants to build a new plant, a new separate plant, in order to increase production capacity. So in this case, these 2 projects, they compete against each other. So for the manufacturer to make a wise decision, we select a project that has high NPV and high internal rate of return. So in that scenario, you choose a project when you have two projects that compete against each other. You select a project which has high net present value and high internal rate of return. Okay, classification number 6, independent project. These are projects that serve different purposes. All projects can be undertaken simultaneously. So in this case, I'll give you an example. Let's say a real estate investment company wants to buy income producing property. In this case, each property will work on its own. Each project can be undertaken simultaneously. Okay, so we are going to look at the different techniques of capital budgeting, the discounting and then discounting techniques. Okay, project evaluation techniques. This involves carrying out a cost-benefit analysis using the various materials available in order to determine whether to accept or reject a project. Okay, in this case, these are techniques that you calculate in order to determine whether the project is suitable or not suitable. Okay, there are two classification of techniques. There is a non-discounting technique, and the other option is discounting technique. On non-discounting techniques, these are techniques that ignores the concept of time value of money. They assume that value of money does not change over time. Okay, now discounting technique, this ignores the concept of time value of money, and we are going to look at classification of non-discounting techniques. It includes the payback period, and the other one is accounting rate of return. So under payback period, this refers to the length of time it will take to recover initial investment in the project. The recovery of initial investment is in the form of cash flows of the project. So under payback, we want to see how much time will it require us to recover our initial investment from the cash flow. So we want to see the period, the length of time it will take to achieve our starting capital. So for example, let's say we look at an example and I'll show you how I do it. Consider a 4-year project which initial cash outlay $50,000. That's the starting capital. The project is expected to generate the following cash flows. So in year 1, the project will generate $30,000, and in year 2, the project will generate $10,000. In year 3, project will generate $20,000, and in year 4, the project will generate $10,000. So what is the payback period? Remember, our starting capital was $50,000. So in this case, we want to see what is the length of time it takes us to recover our starting capital of $50,000. So from year 1, our initial investment was $50,000. So in your first year, the cash flow was $30,000. In our second year, cash flow is $10,000. So if you add the $30,000 and the $10,000, you get $40,000. So we have not yet to cover our starting capital of $50,000. So how much are we remaining with what to recover our starting capital? So the remaining balance, simply subtract the initial capital $50,000 minus the cash flow that we have now. The total cash flow that we have now is $40,000. So the remaining balance is $10,000. So in the third year, the capital that we are given was $20,000. So in order for us to calculate the payback period, so in the first 2 years, we already got $40,000. So we will write 2 years plus the remaining balance was $10,000. So 2 years plus $10,000 divided by $20,000, which is the $20,000 is the cash flow for the third year. So we are going to divide these two. So 2 plus $10,000 divided by $20,000, you get 2.5 years. And the payback period will be 2.5 years. So it will take us 2.5 years for us to achieve a capital of $50,000, which was our starting capital. So this is the easiest way of calculating the payback period. You calculate first the cash flow, you add the total, and the remaining balance you divide it by the next year cash flow. So like for example here, it was 2 years plus the remaining, which was $10,000, divided by $20,000, and then the answer you get is 2.5 years. So we're going to look at the next technique of the discounting technique. The second option is counting. Okay. On decision rule, in case of a mutually exclusive project, the project with a shorter payback period is accepted. Remember, I told you the mutually exclusive project is a project that compete against each other. So in case of that scenario, if you want to go with the best of project using the payback period, the one which is a shorter period, you will accept the one with the shortest period. Yeah. Okay. Advantages of payback period. Advantage 1: it uses cash flows to evaluate instead of accounting profits. As you can see, we use the cash flows. Okay. Advantage 2: it's easy to calculate. In our previous example, the steps was very easy to follow. Okay. Number 3, it emphasizes on the liquidity of the firm by considering projects with shorter payback periods. Considers time-based risk. Okay, that's the advantages. We're going to look at disadvantages. advantages of payback period. First one, it ignores the concept of time value of money. Okay, a disadvantage two, in case of a single project, it does not give a decision rule. Single project. Okay. The other technique is the accounting rate of return, which is under the non-discounting technique. Accounting rate of return. So this is calculated using the formula. Accounting rate of return is equal to average accounting profit divided by the average investment. Okay, for us to get the average investment, you add the initial investment, you add salvage or scrap value, and then you divide the answer by 2 for us to get the average investment. For accounting profit, average accounting profit, you add all the profit, you divide it by the number of years. Okay, so we're going to look at an example. In this question, consider a 5-year project whose initial investment is $25,000 with an expected salvage value of $50,000. The project is expected to generate the following profit. Okay, the salvage value, this means the value which can sold off the investment. It's also called the scrap value. So it means the value that can sold it off the market. Okay, in year 1, profit generated was $80,000. In year 2, is $70,000. In year 3, it is $50,000. In year 4, it is $30,000. And in year 5, it is $20,000. So we want to know what is the accounting rate of return. Remember I said the accounting rate of return, you add all the profit, find the average profit, divide it by the average investment, then it turns 100%. So okay, so the average accounting profit, it would be the total cash flow for the whole year. So first year it was $80,000 plus $70,000 for the second year plus $50,000 for the third year plus $30,000 for the fourth year plus $20,000 for the fifth year. Finding the average, you divide it by the 5 teams. Those cash flow are for the 5 years. So after add all this accounting profit, then you divide by 5, you get the average accounting profit is $50,000. So what's the average investment? We said the average investment, you add the initial investment, plus the scrap value, or the scrap value. Okay, so our initial investment was $25,000, and the scrap value is $50,000. So when you divide these two, you get, okay, for the average, you get the average is $37,500. So accounting rate of return would be the average profit, accounting profit is $50,000 divided by the average investment, that's $7,500, and then multiply by 100%, you get it 133%. So the accounting rate of return, the answer is 133%. Okay, the accounting rate of return is also easy to calculate. What I can tell you is that the option for non-discounting techniques, their calculation is very easy for non-discounting techniques. We're going to look at the utilization rule one can use when you're dealing with the accounting rate of return. In case of mutually exclusive projects, the one with a higher accounting rate of return is accepted. So remember, the mutually exclusive project, I told you, these are projects that compete against each other. So if you have two projects that compete against each other, so when you are using the accounting rate of return, you will pick the project with high accounting rate of return. Advantages of accounting rate of return: it's easy to calculate, very easy, not time consuming also. Also, it uses all accounting concepts when evaluating the project. Okay, as you have seen, we use the accounting profit when finding the average. Okay, the accounting profit, advantage number 3, accounting profit used are already available from the company's published financial information. So we do not come up with a, you just don't come up with a value of your own. This accounting profit already exists in the published financial information. So investor will, if you want to find the accounting rate return for investment, you simply use the accounting profit that is published in the financial statement. Disadvantages of ARR: it ignores the concept of time value of money. Remember, on non-distinct techniques, these are techniques that ignores the concept of time value of money. So when you're given a question and you're trying to give disadvantages from non-discounted techniques, the first answer you're going to give is it ignores the concept of time value of money. Okay, disadvantage 2, it uses accounting profit instead of cash flow. So in this case, the accounting profit is the one which we use and not cash flows, like for discounting techniques which we are going to discuss next. So we're going to look at the discounting technique. discounting techniques. These techniques takes into account the concept of time value of money. This is the opposite of discounting, and they include the net present value or NPV. To get NPV simply is the present value of cash inflow. You subtract it present value of cash outflow. In decision criteria, when you want to base your decision using the NPV, you accept the project if NPV is greater than 0. So when NPV is greater than 0, 1, 2, you accept that project. Decision criteria number 2, reject the project if NPV is less than 0. So if the NPV is shorter, is below 0, or if NPV is negative, you don't accept the project. We reject it. Decision criteria 3, you are at a point of indifference if the net present value equal to 0. So in that scenario, you're in a dilemma. Let's say dilemma or indifference. You don't know what to select. So we need to look at an example. I'm going to show you how we calculate the net present value. So in this example, consider a 5-year project whose initial cash outlay is $100,000. The project is expected to generate the following cash flows. In year 1, cash flow expected is generated is $40,000. In year 2, cash flow expected to be generated is $30,000. In year 3, cash flow expected to be generated is $20,000. And in year 4, the cash flow expected to be generated is $10,000. And in year 5, the cash flow expected to be generated is $50,000. If the cost of capital is 12%, determine as to whether to accept or reject the project. Remember, we said that if you are using the net present value, we want to look at, we select a product which has a positive net present value. So remember, we said that NPV, first get the NPV simply is present value of cash inflow minus present value of cash outflow. So in this case, the cost of capital you are given is 12%. So we want to determine the net present value for the whole project. So we have 2 columns. We have 4 columns. In column 1, we have the year, column for years. And next column is the cash flows. That column is the present value of cash inflow. at 12% is the cost of capital, and the formula for getting the present value of cash inflow is 1 plus R over 100%. You close the bracket, you raise it to power n. In this case, the R stands for the rate and n stands for a year. The PVS present value is the value, present value of the cash flow. So in year 1, the cash flow we are given is $40,000. So for us to get the present value of cash inflow is it will be 1 plus 12 over 100. 12 is the rate, you say, close, we raise this to power -1 since we are in the first year. So the value you get is 0.8929. The present value will be 0.8929 you've got multiplied by the cash flow, which was $40,000. So the present value is $35,716. So in year 2, cash flow is $30,000. So our present value of cash inflow will be 1 plus, open the bracket, 12 over 100, you close the bracket, you raise that answer to power -2. This means we are in the second year, so we are in the second year, so power -2. After the answer you get is 0.7972. So for us to get the present value will be 0.7972 multiplied by the cash flow, which is $30,000. So the present value of the cash flow is $23,916. So in the third year, cash flow we are given is $20,000. So present value of cash inflow will be 1 plus, open the bracket, 12 over 100, close the bracket, raise it to power -3. This because in the third year, the value you get is 0.7118. So the present value of cash flow will be, of the cash flow will be 0.7118 times the cash flow $20,000. So the present value of cash flow is $14,236. Okay, the fourth year cash flow is $10,000. So the present value of cash inflow at 12% will be, open the bracket, 1 plus 12 over 100 close the bracket, you raise it to power -4. Okay, the value get is 0.6355. So the present value of cash flow will be 0.6355. You times the cash flow. Cash flow is $10,000. So the present value of cash flows will be $6,000, 365. So the fifth year, cash flow is $50,000. So B1 plus 12/100 raised to power -5 because in the fifth year the value you get is 0.5674. So 0.5674 times the cash flow, $50,000, you get that the present value of cash flow is $28,000, 370. So we add all the total for the present value of cash of the cash flow for the whole 5 years. You get at the present value of cash flow is $108,000, 593. So remember, we said that first to get the NPV is the present value of cash inflow, we subtract the present value of cash outflow. So in this case, our total present value of cash inflow was $108,000, 593. Our present value of cash outflow, which is our investment capital or static capital, was $100,000. So after subtracting, you get 8,593. So we have got a positive NPV. So in this case, the 593, this means we are accepting the project because the NPV is greater than 1. Remember on our decision criteria we said if the NPV is greater than 0, 1, 2, we accept the project, and if it's less than 0, we reject the project. So in this case, the answer we've got is a positive value. So this means that the project, we accept the project, then if we have a positive net present value. Okay. So we're going to look at advantages of NPV, the net present value. Advantage 1, it considers concept of time value of money. Okay, the other advantage is it uses cash flows in evaluating the project instead of accounting profits. Advantage 3, it is consistent with shareholders' wealth maximization goal. I believe the advantages are very easy to understand and comprehend. Okay, disadvantages of NPV. It assumes that cost of capital will remain constant under the period under analysis. So it assumes that the cost of capital does not change. So that's the disadvantages of NPV. So we're going to look at another profitability index. This is another discounting technique. Okay, it attempts to determine the amount generated from the project in present value terms for every dollar invested in the project. It is calculated using the formula present value of cash inflow divided by the present value of cash outflow. So, okay, this actually is like opposite of NPV. Instead of subtracting, we divide it. So, the decision criteria: one, it accepts the project if the profitability index is greater than 1. I also reject the project if profitability index is less than 1. Note, advantages of profitability is the same as those of NPV. Actually, profitability index is almost the same as NPV. The advantages was uses the concept of time value of money. Also, it uses cash flows to evaluate the project, and it uses the shareholders wealth. It maximizes the shareholders wealth maximization goal. So we're going to look at the third technique of the discounting technique. It is called internal rate of return, to brackets IRR. Okay, students, I want you to pay attention to this method. It's very detailed, and you need to be with me when I'm showing you how to get the IRR, because it's very tedious and it's a long process. So I want all your mind to be with me when explaining to you the internal rate of return. So is a method of calculating investment rate of return. The formula for calculating the internal rate of return is IRR is equal to lower rate plus NPV at lower rate divided by NPV at lower rate. This is supposed to be let me check here. So I'll start again. It is IRR is equal to lower rate plus, you open a bracket, NPV at lower rate, you divide by NPV at lower rate plus NPV at higher rate. Then you close the bracket, you open another bracket, higher rate minus the lower rate. That's the formula. So the decision criteria, you accept the project if the internal rate of return is greater than the cost of capital. You are going to be given the cost of capital when evaluating the internal rate of return. So if you, after calculation, you find the IRR is greater than the cost of capital, you accept the project. This is criteria number 2. You reject the project if IRR is less than the cost of capital. So after calculating, you find the IRR is less than cost of capital. Simply, you reject the project. So we're going to look at an example. I'm going to show you how you're going to calculate the internal rate of return, and I want you to pay very close attention to this method because you need to understand everything step by step. Example 1. Consider a 3-year project whose initial cash outlay is $120,000 and it is expected to generate the following cash flow. So in the first year, cash flow is $65,000. In the second year, it is $40,000, and in the third year, it is $50,000. So if the cost of cash flow capital is 12%, determine the project's internal rate of return, determine the IRR. So the cost of capital we are given is 12%. So we need to know the IRR. So we say the formula that IRR is equal to lower rate plus you open a big bracket NPV at lower rate, you divide it by NPV at lower rate plus NPV at higher rate. Close a bracket and then you open another bracket. HR higher rate minus lower rate, close the bracket. So LR means the lower rate and the high R means the higher rate. Rate we are given is the cost of capital is 12%. So we are going to have a 4 column. First column is going to be column for years. The second column is the cash flow. The third column is the present value of cash inflow at the rate of 12%. And the formula for getting the present value of cash inflow is bracket 1 plus R over 100%. You close raised power negative n. So the R means the rate of the cost of capital, and n means the year. N means the year. So present values and TVS means the present value of cash flow. So in the first year, they saw that the cash flow is $65,000. So the present value of cash flow at 12% would be open bracket 1 plus 12 over 100 close the bracket, then you raise to power negative 1. This is because we are in the first year. So the value get is 0.8929. So the present value of cash flow will be 0.8929 times cash flow of $65,000. So the present value of cash flow is $58,000 and 38. We're going to look at the second year. The second year, the cash flow we are given is $40,000. And the present value of cash inflow 12% is the 1 plus 12 over 100. 12 is the rate of capital. You raised it to power -2. Why are we raising to power -2? It's because we are in the second year. So the value gets is 0.7972. So for us to get the present value of cash flow, we multiply 0.7972 and cash flow $40,000. So the present value of cash flow is $31,000, 888. And in the third year, cash flow are given $50,000. So first get the present value of cash flow for 12% will be open a bracket 1 plus another bracket 12 is the rate of 100. You raise cross the bracket and you raise it into -3. Why is it -3? Is because we are in the third year. So the value you get is 0.7118. So first get the present value of cash flow to be 0.7118 multiplied by $50,000. Okay, after multiplying the present value of cash flow is $35,000, 590. So after finding the present value of cash flow for that year, find the sum of the total cash flow. So after you add all the cash flow, the present value of cash flow, you get that the total is $125,000, 516. So for us to get the NPV, remember on our formula, NPV is present value of cash inflow minus the present value of cash outflow. So it will be 125,516, which is the present value of cash inflow minus present value of cash outflow. This is $120,000, which is the starting capital. So after subtracting, you get 5,516. So this means this is our NPV. So we have determined the NPV at the lower rate. So the NPV at lower rate, get the answer is 5,516. So now from here we're going to calculate NPV at higher rates. I'm going to show you how. The formula similar. So for the NPV at higher rate, the higher rate, we are not given the higher rate. So we will select a rate that is higher than the cost of capital, which is 12%. Remember in the question we are given a 12% cost of cash flow. So higher rate we determine by ourselves. So we go with, let's say, 16%. So again we have 4 column for years, cash flows, present value of cash inflow at 16%, which is the rate that they have determined, and the present values. So in the first year, the cash flow is $65,000. The present value of cash inflow at 16% will be open bracket 1 plus 16 which is our rate divided by 100. We raise it for -1. Why is so? Because each year is first year. The value gain is 0.8621. So first to get the present value of cash flow will be 0.8621 times cash flow $65,000, which again is present value of cash flow is $56,000.36. In the second year, our cash flow is $40,000. So the present value of cash inflow at 16% will be 1 plus, final bracket, 16 over 100. We raise it to power -2. The raise it power -2 is because we're in the second year. So the value you get is 0.7432. So for us to get the present value of cash flow, you multiply 0.7432 multiplied by cash flow, which is $40,000. So our present value of cash flow in our second year is $29,728. So in the third year, cash flow is $50,000, and our present value of cash flow at 16% will be, open a bracket, 1 plus 16 over 100, you raise it for -3. This because we're in the third year. The value is 0.6907. So the present values of cash flow will be 0.6907 multiplied by $50,000. Get the answer is the present value of cash flow will be $32,000.35. So we're going to find the total of present value of cash flow. So if we are adding, the answer you get is $117,799. So for us to get the NPV, remember it's present value of cash inflow and the present value of cash outflow. So present value of cash inflow is the total you have just get, it is $117,799. We subtract our static capital, which is $120,000, and the answer you get is -2001. So our NPV at higher rate is found is negative. So for now we have gotten the NPV at lower rate and a higher rate. So we are going to continue our formula for finding IRR. So remember, IRR is equal to lower rate plus, open a bracket, NPV at lower rate divided by NPV at lower rate plus NPV at higher rate, close the bracket, open another bracket, higher rate minus lower rate. So our lower rate was 12% plus our NPV at lower rate we have just get was 5,516 divided by 500 and 516, which is our NPV at lower rate, plus -2001, which is our NPV at higher rate, and close the bracket. Okay, 16 minus 12, which means higher rate minus lower is 16 minus 12. So after calculating all this, they get the answer is 18.3%. 18.3%. So that means 18.3% is greater than 12%, which it was cost of capital. Remember, in our decision criteria we said if the IRR is greater than the cost of capital, we accept the project. So in this case it is greater, thus we accept the project. So I believe you followed me step by step believe now you understand this concept and how to calculate the internal rate of return. So we're going to look at advantages, disadvantages. So advantages of IRR. Advantage 1, it takes into account the concept of time value of money. Remember what I said, that the discounting techniques, all the advantages, it takes into concept the time value of money. Advantage 2, it uses cash flows also, evaluating the project. Also, it considers the magnitude and timing of cash flows. Disadvantages of IRR, it is tedious to calculate, as you have seen, very long, takes a lot of time. It's not like the NPV and the profitability index. Also, in case of non-conventional cash flows, the project will have more than one IRR. Non-conventional cash flow, these are cash flows that it keeps on fluctuating from positive to negative. Let's say, for instance, the first year you get a positive cash flow, the next year you get a negative cash flow, the third year you get a negative cash flow, the fourth year you get a positive. So that's the non-conventional cash flow. So we are done with capital budgeting, and we'll show you the discounting and non-discounting techniques. So we're going to look also in our investment decision, we're going to look at capitalization rate. I'm going to show you what is capitalization rate. I go into the formula of calculating. Going to give you the conclusion. So also this capitalization rate is under the investment decision. So capitalization rate, also called the cap rate, is a concept which is very important to investors in the real estate market. This is a concept which every investor in the real estate market uses. The cap rate is also called the cap rate. Helps in determining the investment, the real estate market, or in other words, the rate of return of an investment, ROI, the real estate market. If the cap rate is high, that means we have a better return for the investment. In simple terms, cap rate is basically a yield of an asset in a 1 year term. So I'm going to look at the assumptions. Assumptions of cap rate. It assumes that investors buy the property on cash basis and not on credit. Also, it assumes that returns should be calculated in yearly basis. Okay. So we're going to look at an example of the formula. So the formula of calculating the cap rate, the formula of cap rate is net operating income divided by the current market price. So first to get the net operating income, usually you add all the total income and then you subtract the property taxes, the maintenance cost, and other operating expense and any other operating expenses. First get the net operating income. So simply add all the income minus all total expenses. So for a rental property, to get the net operating income, simply rental income less maintenance expenses. Also, another thing to note, we don't involve depreciation when calculating the cap rate. The current market value of the asset is the value on the market, so you use that current price. First determine the current price. So I'm going to look at an example. Okay, an example, John, a person named John, buys land worth $400,000. He expects to earn around $185,000 per year from the land. What will be the cap rate? Remember what they say, formula of cap rate is equal to net operating income divided by the current market price. So in this case, what is the net operating income? It is the total, which is $185,000. We don't have any other expenses, so we use the $185,000 as the net operating income. At the current market price, which you are given, is the 400. If this is the current market price, $400,000. So the cap rate will be $185,000, which is the net operating income, divided by $400,000. After multiplying by 100%, get is 46.3%. So this means that John will expect an earning of 46.3% per year from the land. Also, another note, one thing to notice, one must keep in mind in the real estate market, it's usually volatile. This means that the value of land could drop or rise. In this case, we are going to use the current market value as the current market condition. So if it's inflation, we are going to, if the current market price for the property, we use the current value of the asset in that prevailing market condition. So the benefits of cap rates include helps in property acquiring realization. So you base your answer after finding the capitalization rate. So it gives idea of the trend of real estate prices. It helps in ascertaining the recovery rate. It also helps in investment option comparison. You want to compare which asset gives which property gives a better return. Also, it helps us looking at the riskiness of an investment in the market. So the advantages of cap rate include it assumes a constant income from the property. That's the first disadvantages. Also, it focuses on the current risk, ignoring the future. Remember I said we based it on a yearly basis. So it only focuses on current risk. So the risk for the future is ignored. Also, it is not suitable if operating income fluctuates. So, conclusion for the cap rate. The conclusion is cap rates are good in making investment decisions. However, investors should not solely depend on cap rates to make their real estate investment decision, rather use other methods as well. The other method we have just discussed, the discounting techniques. So that's the other method you can use to make a decision in the real estate market. So that's the end of our topic for today. Hope you understood. I'm going to catch in the next lesson. Thank you.